Having something for 2 days, I could do, but having the same exact meal for 3 days, I cannot do. In today's video, I'm talking about how I meal prep as someone who hates meal prepping. So the first thing that I always make sure to do is to know what I'm going to eat the night before. So I end up saying this for a couple of reasons because number one thing that I ended up noticing was that many times I would not know what I want to eat, and my boyfriend would constantly ask me, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? And my constant answer was, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And it wasn't until probably like 30 minutes before I really wanted to finish my last meal by where I would think of what I want to have, but then I would realize like I can't really have that because either I need to thaw it out, it's going to take too long to make, or the prepping requires ingredients we don't have, and then it will require us to either go to the store or just now think of something else to make. So one thing that I've been doing lately that has been thoroughly beneficial is to know what I want to eat the night before. This helps me so much because number one, if I know I'm going to have to take something out to thaw it out, I now know to take that out ahead of time and have that thaw out in the fridge. So that way, when I'm ready to have my dinner the next day, I don't have to worry about what I'm thawing out, if I have to thaw out something, or if I now have to think of an alternative meal to make. So one thing to do is know what you want to eat the night before as far as a meal, or at least have the basic of what you want to eat. So maybe you don't know if you want to have pasta or rice, but you know you want to have chicken. Then make sure to take out the chicken from the freezer the night before, so that way you have it thawed out. And if you already have it thawed out, then think of what kind of flavor profile you're looking for of having that chicken. So maybe you could do an overnight marinade. I never get that far of marinating my chicken overnight, so I just like season it and cook it right once I'm ready to eat it. But one thing that helps significantly is knowing in advance what type of meal you want to have that next day, or at least know the basic of what you want to have the next day. The next one piggybacks off of the first one, and it's something that I'm going to do now, which is to prep the food either in the morning or during your lunch. So I work remotely, I work from home. So one thing that I usually do when it comes to my lunch break is I'm sitting all day. So one thing that I like to do during my lunchtime is prep any food that I'm going to make. Because number one, I get it out the way earlier and I don't have to think about it for when I get off of work. And another thing is that it helps me be on my feet and it helps me do something that doesn't require a screen. So I'm actually going to be making my sushi rice for my dinner later, and it's going to help significantly because it's one less task I have to worry about doing. So if you're making vegetables, if you're having rice, if you're having, I wouldn't say pasta because I feel like pasta requires a little bit longer time. But if you're making something to where you could easily take like 15 minutes to prep it ahead of time, one thing that I think saves up so much time when it comes to prepping your dinners or prepping your meals is to use your lunch break to do so. So anytime when I know I'm about to have vegetables with my meals, what I'll do is just chop up the vegetables and then put them in a bowl and put them in the refrigerator. If I'm having rice, like today, I'll just start on the rice so that way while I'm working, if I have to go back on the clock by the time my lunch break ends, I don't really have to worry about the rice so much. Like I just have to check on it. And then once it's done, I just put it to the side. So another quick thing of doing of either if it's in the morning before you start work or in the afternoon is to prep your veggies, your rice, or even if you're making something like potatoes, just have those chopped up during the downtimes of the morning or afternoon during your lunch to then do the prepping for those items. So as I'm working on making my rice, this actually brings me to my next tip, which is to prepare a base you can have for several days. When it comes to like meal prepping, of like seeing videos of people meal prepping and then having like the same meal Monday through Friday, for me, honestly, like I get sick of that meal by day 3. By day 3, I'm not even having it. And it's funny because I actually ended up making a meal for multiple days and I forgot I even had it. I didn't even realize it until I was eating some leftovers of another thing that I had made. And then I'm like saying sorry to the Tupperware because I'm like, I completely forgot about you. And so for me, it's like one thing that I realized is like, having something for 2 days I could do, but having the same exact meal for 3 days, I cannot do. And so one thing that I have realized that works for me is having a base that I could eat for several days. And this has been thoroughly helpful because when it comes to having a base, when I say a base, I mean like something like pasta or rice or even like a protein like potato. Look, potato's not a protein, but even something like potatoes or a protein like chicken. If you could make a large amount of that, but then finding different ways of creating different recipes with that, that is thoroughly helpful. So for one thing that I did recently last week was I ended up making, I'm trying to record. One thing that I ended up making last week was a lot of chicken. And what I ended up doing, because I really was fiending for a chicken wrap for the longest. And then I finally got the chance to make a chicken wrap. And so I didn't want to end up just making enough chicken for the chicken wrap. I just ended up using the portion of what was available in that packaging that I had for the chicken. And then I just cooked the entire chicken and then made different recipes with the chicken. So one day I had a chicken wrap, next day I had a chicken salad, another day I think I did like rice and chicken. I was able to switch up what I was having with the chicken. And the same thing goes with sushi rice. When it comes to sushi rice, I like using sushi rice the most just because I feel like it's much more versatile of me being able to make something as compared to the basmati rice that we have. So with the sushi rice, I'm making this today to have with my red meat and a fried egg. But any other day, if I don't want that dish, I can either make sushi, I can make a sushi bowl with some greens and cucumbers and a whole bunch of vegetables. There's different types of recipes I can make using the same ingredients of rice without feeling annoyed with constantly eating rice. So another thing that genuinely helps is whatever base you have that be like something you could have for multiple days and have different recipes that you can make using that one ingredient. You also do want to be mindful of how much you make, because it's taken me a while of over making too much of something and under making of too much of something. And I don't even know if that's proper terminology, but I feel like it's gonna probably take trial and error unless you already know what your baseline is. One thing that I had to realize was like, I would make too much of it and then I wouldn't eat it. So it is playing around with trial and error and then paying attention to how much you use the first time you did your batch versus the second time you did your batch, because that would help with also like not wasting food, and especially with how grocery prices are today. Like, I thoroughly think being especially more mindful of how much it is you are actually going to consume in those amount of days is just as important of having like a base that you can eat for multiple days. And the last one is to make frozen batches of things. So this kind of is similar to meal prepping in a way, but I feel like it lasts longer and you're able to play around when you actually want to eat it and you're not under time constraint. So I ended up randomly finding this method helpful on New Year's Eve, because for the end of the last year, I was like, you know what? I really want to make dumplings for the new year. I don't really know why I wanted to make dumplings, but I remember when we first moved here, I call him my brother-in-law. He ended up making dumplings. Well, we ended up all making dumplings. Like, I was at work and then they came to pick me up and was like, hey, we're making dumplings today. And I'm like, cool. And so I've been really fiending on wanting to make dumplings again. And I ended up finding a recipe, but it was over the amount that I was able to eat in one sitting. So at the end of the recipe, it gave an option to freeze it and then have it for later. And then one day I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to eat, but I was really on a time constraint because I really work on not eating past a certain time. And then for the past month and a half, I've been trying to move up that time because I feel like if I eat about like 4 hours before bed, I tend to have better sleep than if I eat 2-3 hours before bed. So I ended up having like this conundrum of what to eat for dinner. And then I was like, oh, I have my dumplings. So I just ended up going to the freezer, cooking the dumplings, having some vegetables with it. And then I had dinner within like 20 minutes. So one thing that I started to do was look at recipes that I can make in batches that honestly probably won't even take up that much time and I would enjoy making, and that items that I could put in the freezer rather than the refrigerator and then only have it within a certain window. So one thing that I actually made yesterday was banana muffins, and I have a little bit in the refrigerator, and if I don't eat them by a certain time, I'm gonna be putting them in the freezer. And I ended up doing this method earlier last month for my banana muffins. And honestly, I feel like it tasted better coming from the freezer than it did from the refrigerator. But I really love them because they're regular banana muffins that I made, and all I have to do is put it in the microwave for under 30 seconds, and they're nice and warm, tasty, and good. I don't have to worry about eating them within 4 days. I don't have to worry about any processed ingredients. I don't have to worry about eating a processed food because I don't have anything available that I want to eat now. If I want a snack, if I want a quick breakfast and I don't feel like making any scrambled eggs, this is something that I could still go to that has healthy ingredients in it, and I know what's in it because I made it. So one thing I highly suggest is having a recipe where you can make it in batches and just have it in the freezer, and when you're ready to have it, you can just take it out, microwave it, or put it on the stove, put it in the oven, and then you have your dinner. So one thing that I'm doing today is actually making crab cakes. I'm making like these vegan crab cakes, but instead of using a flax egg, I'm using a regular egg. And I've been wanting to make the vegan crab cakes for the longest. It's been on my schedule to make since the last month, but because I had already other items that I had prepped making, or yesterday I found out that I didn't have the ingredients that I needed. Now today I have the ingredients that I need. I have the time to be able to make it, and that's what I'm going to be making today for my meal prep. And then I'm just gonna prep the crab cakes, and then whatever I'm not eating, I'm just putting it in the freezer. I'm actually gonna be putting all of them in the freezer just because I'm already having my dinner set for today. So whether you are making a large batch to have some for today and then for the rest of the week, or whenever you plan on having them, or if you're doing a batch to then just have for the future, I honestly think having individual food batches is such a benefit because I think it reduces your chances of eating anything processed. It reduces your chances of just ordering out food, and it reduces the overload of trying to think of what to make. You already have something that you already made in advance. You just have it in the freezer, and all you have to do is throw it out by either just putting it on the stove, putting it in the microwave, or putting it in the oven. So those are my 4 tips on how to meal prep without actually meal prepping and not having the same meals every day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.